He signed his letters with a target symbol. He boasted about killing. And yet, despite the evidence, despite the ciphers and thousands of hours of investigation, no one ever caught him. This is the story of the Zodiac, the mystery that has haunted the San Francisco Bay Area for over half a century. It all began in the late 1960s, a time of supposed peace and love. But a dark shadow fell over Northern California. At night, young couples, teenagers, and even a taxi driver became targets. The official count stands at 5 confirmed victims, in attacks that seemed both brutally impulsive and chillingly calculated. The killer wasn't content to just commit these acts. He needed an audience. Local newspapers started receiving provocative letters, complex codes, and even pieces of bloody clothing. A killer who introduced himself in the third person. "This is the Zodiac speaking." The case unfolded from scenes of everyday life, a quiet night out by a lake, a late-night stroll in a park before violence erupted without warning. The first murders followed a terrifyingly similar pattern, a sudden ambush, rapid gunfire, and a swift escape into the darkness. The press, naturally, seized on the story. As the headlines grew bolder, so did the fear. The Zodiac made a chilling demand: publish his letters, or more victims would follow. The police were in a race against time, but the crime scenes were often frustratingly sparse, offering few conclusive clues to work with. But the Zodiac was much more than just a killer. He was a master manipulator, a communicator who thrived on terror. He sent intricate ciphers-coded messages to the press, openly taunting the authorities who were desperately trying to catch him. One of his most famous cryptograms was sent in 3 parts and promised to reveal his identity if solved. Another, the infamous Z340 cipher, stumped the world's best codebreakers for decades. It wasn't until 2020 that a team of amateur cryptologists finally cracked it. The message inside was just as macabre and megalomaniacal as expected, filled with taunts and boasts, but frustratingly, it didn't provide a name. These codes fueled a worldwide obsession, drawing in investigators, journalists, and amateur detectives, all hoping to be the one to unmask the man behind the symbol. One act, in particular, horrified the entire city of San Francisco. In October 1969, a taxi driver named Paul Stine was shot and killed in his cab. This time, the Zodiac didn't just write about it. He mailed a piece of Stine's blood-soaked shirt to a newspaper to prove he was the perpetrator, a direct, public provocation. The violence was no longer confined to remote lovers' lanes. It had invaded the city streets. The feeling was that anyone could be next. Investigators scrambled, developing theories, circulating partial identifications, and creating composite sketches based on witness descriptions. But the man remained a ghost, always one step ahead. Over the years, countless names have been floated as potential suspects. There have been contradictory testimonies, dubious confessions, and highly publicized revelations that ultimately led nowhere. The evidence presented was often weak, circumstantial, or simply couldn't be proven. Modern investigative methods, like DNA genealogy, have solved other notorious cold cases from that era, breathing new hope into old mysteries. But for the Zodiac, even with decades of advancements, his official identity remains stubbornly unknown. The void of information has been filled with rumors, feeding an entire ecosystem of podcasts, online forums, and documentaries, ensuring the killer's shadow continues to grow long after his reign of terror ended. It's easy to get lost in the intellectual puzzle of it all, to become fascinated by the cryptic letters and the complex codes. But behind every theory and every potential breakthrough lie shattered lives. We must remember their names: David Faraday, Betty Lou Jensen, Darlene Ferrin, Cecilia Shepard, and Paul Stine. We must also remember Michael Mageau and Brian Hartnell, who survived the horrific attacks. Remembering them is a crucial reminder that this isn't just an intellectual game or a thrilling mystery. It's a tragic list of real people and grieving families who have never received the justice they deserve. The Zodiac left behind a strange and paradoxical legacy. On one hand, he was a ruthless killer who terrorized an entire region. On the other, he created a collective obsession, a global effort to solve the enigma he crafted. Official investigators, amateur sleuths, cryptologists, and journalists have spent decades mapping his roots, piecing together clues, and trying to decode his twisted mind. And yet the full truth remains incomplete. The few codes that have been solved only confirmed his love for provocation and theatricality, But they never closed the loop on his identity. As we close this chapter, the central question hangs heavier than ever. Who was the Zodiac? The mystery has not only resisted science and police work. It has resisted our fundamental human need to put a name and a face to evil, to understand it, and to contain it. Until that identity is definitively established, the shadow of the Zodiac will continue to haunt the Bay Area, and indeed the dark corners of our own imagination. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as compelling as we do, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into history's greatest unsolved mysteries. We'll see you in the next one.